Welcome to Modern Anarchy, the podcast exploring sex, relationships, and liberation. I'm your host, Dr. Nicole.
I tried to keep her quiet, but she's screaming inside of me. I tried to keep her hiding, oh, shut up. I tried to keep her quiet, but she's a wild, wild woman.
On today's episode, we have Empress Wu. Join us for a conversation exploring the psychological edge of power exchange. Together we talk about finding other cuckoo bitches, nutting off mic, and the politics of the taboo. Hello, dear listener, and welcome back to Modern Anarchy. I'm so delighted that you are here, so grateful that you are ready to go deeper and explore your pleasure with today's episode. My name is Dr. Nicole. I'm a sex and relationship psychotherapist providing psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, author of the Psychedelic Jealousy Guide and the first research study on relationship anarchy, and founder of the Pleasure Practice, where I teach students from around the world how to craft pleasurable sex lives and non-monogamous relationships. Dear listener, oh my gosh, you are going to love this episode. Wow, you want an inside peek of the psyche of a powerful dominatrix and a psychotherapist? Here it is. We lift up the curtain. Come take a little peek inside our world and our minds. And especially if you are an intellectual in the terms of the kink and the power dynamics, you're going to love this. Or if you're an emotional space holder or healer, wow. There's a lot of similarities between Empress Wu's work as a dominatrix and my work as a psychotherapist. And yeah, we get into it. All the nitty gritty and the insight and the wild ride of this work. And also, I just want to say congratulations to Empress Wu. Happy 10 years of sex work. What a big milestone. I hope you are celebrating your powerful, badass self. To all of you other sex workers out there, thank you for the work that you're doing for our collective and this movement. It is so deeply important. So thank you, and my heart extends to all of you. All right, dear listener, if you are ready to liberate your pleasure, you can explore my offerings and all of my free worksheets and resources at modernanarchypodcast.com. That's also where you're going to learn more about my upcoming group, the Pleasure Liberation Non-Monogamy Group. This is my 16-week group program where you, dear listener, you learn all of the tools and the trade that I have learned working with non-monogamous clients for years now. I realized there were a lot of patterns in this work, in the place where our psyche goes, the individuation journey, the narratives that we make, the somatic, emotional experience of non-monogamy. I noticed so many patterns in my work that I created a program, and now I teach students from around the world how to craft truly pleasurable non-monogamous relationships, okay? So you can learn all about that, all about how to join the groups and come work with me and students from around the world so that you can craft the most pleasurable dynamics possible. So all of that's in the show notes below, dear listener, and I'm excited to see you in my classroom soon. And I also want to say thank you to all my Patreon supporters. You have made this show free, a free educational research to share with listeners from around the world for the last 5 years. So my heart and gratitude all extends out to you. So thank you. And with that, dear listener, please know that I am sending you all my love, and let's tune in to today's episode. Dear listener, there's a space already waiting for you where you are invited to let go of every old script about sex and relationships and begin living a life rooted in your pleasure, empowerment, and deep alignment. I'm Dr. Nicole, and this is your invitation to the Pleasure Liberation Groups, a transformative, educational, and deeply immersive experience designed for visionary individuals like you. Together, we'll gather in community to explore desire, expand relational wisdom, and embody the lives we're here to lead. Each session is woven with practices, teachings, and the kind of connection that makes real transformation possible. And I'll be right there with you, guiding the process with an embodied curriculum that supports both personal and collective liberation. This is your invitation into the next chapter of your erotic evolution. Say yes to your pleasure and visit modernanarchypodcast.com/pleasure practice to apply. And the first question that I love to ask each guest on the show is, how would you introduce yourself to the listeners?
My name is Empress Wu. I use all pronouns. I am a cultural activist and dominatrix based in New York City. I primarily, in all of my work, love engaging in the exploration of like conflict, what that does to our psyche, psychosexual dramas, new ideas about like kinship and connection and intimacy. For the listeners who are at home, a visual description of me is that I am like a tan East Asian woman, femme presenting. I wear glasses. I have bangs that are not quite micro bangs, and dark hair and tattoos.
Amazing. And it's such a joy to have you back on the show today. Woo!
I'm waving right now.
Tell me, how have you been in the last 5 years? What has changed for you since we last recorded? I know.
I feel like everything has changed since we last recorded.
Still powerful, still badass. Yeah.
I'm sure that you can say the same, but I feel like obviously like the world has changed and shifted. I definitely feel like I myself as an individual have changed and shifted both independently and in relation to the world. I was just talking to you prior to the start of this recording, but I was like listening to our like bits and pieces of like our last episode when we first recorded back in 2021, and I'm kind of blown away at like thinking about what my life was like back then and how much my life has like advanced and changed, and like the pitfalls that I ran into, and like all of the different moments in which I've like made massive mistakes, and all the things that I've like learned from those mistakes, also the things that I've like developed and accrued since then. And it's just really cool to be like joining you something like 4.5 years later, and to be thinking about how we each independently have like grown and evolved and what it took to like get there.
Absolutely. An ever evolving process, truly. You spoke to the many ways our identities die.
Yeah.
Good, bad, and otherwise, right? What identities for you have died and what has been born in its place?
I mean, I think that I went on like a very interesting journey around like my own queerness during between the last time that we recorded and like this time that we recorded. I think that I was like in a place last time where my queerness felt like it had to like really barge its way out and like fight its way out to maintain dominance like within my own body. And now it's something that I feel so like confident and settled and like as like a part of me, that it feels like something that no longer exists in like the fight within my own body, but mostly actually exists in like the ways in which, you know, queer people are at odds with the world, especially in the current administration. So it is like something that I have like a different relation to these days. I feel like really I'm in like a very, very lovely and secure relationship these days, which is really awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm like really, really happy about that. And I feel like all these questions about like relationship and intimacy and like romance, like being settled, not in a way that feels static, but settled in a way that still feels like continually like curious and questioning, but no longer insecure. And now I can like relate to the world in a different way, which has kind of been impacting everything in my life, honestly.
Yeah.
yeah, not that everything, originates in the romantic relationship, but it does have impact. Like the way you are in one place of your life is like the way that you are everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is like a really, really cool feeling.
Yeah.
So I specifically this year have been like having a lot of questions for myself. I'm coming up on the 10-year anniversary of me and sex work. Um,
Mm.
that's going to happen actually probably around the time that this episode comes out. I will be
Mm.
celebrating 10 years.
Congratulations, future you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I always like to publicly refer to like me, myself, like the person that I know myself as when I'm like talking about Empress Wu as management. And then
Management has lots of
Empress,
ideas.
yes. And so management's birthday is like 3 days after Empress Wu's birthday.
Mm.
So we celebrate birthdays like kind of in tandem, which
Cute.
is, of course,
Yeah.
Empress Wu would be a Gemini. Yeah, I think that
Ah.
that's going to be a really, really fun um examination and like shift. And I feel myself like really like I'm feeling every single one of those 10 years. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's very interesting.
I can, yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to talk about it. I mean, even the personal and the professional, which is so deeply intertwined, right? In terms
Yeah,
of the queerness and so much of the society repressing that aspect of ourself that you have to really bulldoze through that with
yeah.
such force to get out of it, especially depending on your context of your family dynamics and wherever you're coming from in terms of that. I know we haven't talked about that, but if that's even more restricted, then you really have to come through flaming, right? Through it to
Yeah.
really get out there. And then, like you're saying, it's so much of a survival mode in the body, though, where you're like pushing, 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 pushing to get to a moment where you can feel more settled in that and more safe. And I can only imagine that that really coincided as you're doing sex work, right? At least for me, as I'm doing sex therapy, like I'm constantly evolving how I live my own life as I help other people. So I can only imagine that every scene you're a part of, every moment, every time you see someone crack open on your table, it deepens
Hmm.
your own relationship. And so I can only imagine just the places your mind has gone in the last 10 years as you
Totally.
integrated all of this.
Yeah. And I also have been thinking a lot about this in terms of like the therapeutic practice.
Mm.
Because I feel like I take a lot of inspiration from therapists and especially like the professionalism of therapists.
Sure, yeah.
Sex workers don't necessarily have like a licensed, like a book or a manual on how to like conduct yourself professionally. And so I think
Right.
we kind of have to like take it from other professions or like craft our own and create something of our own design. But I have been thinking a lot about like, oh, I wonder like therapy, I understand is like a discipline and a science, but also I can imagine it as like also such a creative act as well, like it really takes everything that you bring to the table and like your specific energy and the connection that you have like with a specific client. And so I've been thinking about like also as I've been working and doing classes, like teaching classes with a good friend of mine, Atanais Nin, who is a sex therapist as well.
Hmm.
I've been thinking about like, how not only you personally change as a result of like your sessions, but also how your sessions change as like a result of you. And how also that like kind of conflicts with capitalism sometimes because like
Oh, yeah.
there's like a lot of like conversation and talk about like delivering there's like a lot of like underlying expectation to have like a standard product delivered
Mm,
when in reality there is never going to be a standard product, especially in these like I say soft services to say like emotional services or like services that are based in your like soft and vulnerable like emotional world.
right.
There's never going to be like a standard issue session.
No.
Um, and it really is about like the journey that you go on with somebody. And it is truly a pleasure and an honor to like get to experience that with other
Oh,
people. And
yeah.
I talk all the time about like clients that I cut my teeth on,
Mm,
which is to say like clients that I'm like, oh, I really see you going through something,
Yeah.
and it is teaching me a lot just being in proximity to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to maintain the like standard of professionalism, but I also need to acknowledge the fact that I'm like a soft and like porous person as well, and that I do pick up like what happens in a session. And I want to continue learning from like people who I'm surrounded by. Like I want that to be something that like impacts me, and I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have I been yelled at in session? Yes. Am I supposed to just quote unquote be like, that's not me, that's the client? You know how hard that is? What the?
Yeah,
Can't do that.
yeah, it's an inhuman task, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I started working with Jessica Fern for mentorship, and she told me about how many clients have like cursed her out and walked out of the room, and then years later wrote her letters saying like you gave me the medicine I wasn't ready to have
To
yet, right? And
take.
so it's like a deep part of any sort of relational work, especially when you're asking to like push someone or they're asking to be pushed. I recorded with Dr. Avgi, who wrote Sexuality
Mm,
Beyond Consent. Amazing
yes.
conversation. And she kept talking about how like there's this parallel between the psychoanalyst and a dom where the client comes in saying like push me, push me, push me, but not too hard. But
Yeah,
push me. Oh, that's too hard. Now you made me cry. Like, it's like this really like how far do you want it? You're asking for this, but then it's too much. And it's such a dynamic where you're really having to
yes.
attune and really like find out where those edges are for that person. And you're right, there is no
Totally.
like one deliverable product. There are some therapists that try to do manualized treatment, or not try, but do. I'm not one of them, but there are
Mm,
some who
hmm.
do, who are like CBT day one, day two, day three. This is what we do.
Yes.
I think you can get that from a robot, but that's that's a whole other conversation, you know?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot. And Avgi's work was like so influential in the way that I conducted sessions basically from like the beginning of 2023
Amazing.
onward after I read Sexuality Beyond Consent,
Yeah.
which she like posted a story, or she posted like a post on Instagram after the first year of the book being out, and she was like, she's like, I would get letters from people who describe the experience as like being in like a torpedo or like on a tear. And then I would respond to every single one of these letters, and then they would never respond to me again. And I was like, yeah, that is how it felt to read it. Like
Yeah.
reading that book, I've been talking about it like literally nonstop since I read it because it was such a gripping experience. And I feel like it's so rare to have like an experience of reading that, especially in that genre. But yeah, it is that exact same tension of somebody begging you to push them, and you push them, and also sometimes you listen to like a thing that a person is asking you for, and you know in your heart of hearts like that's not really what they're asking for. Like that's not really
Yeah.
what they crave, desire, need to be like a better version of themselves. And so sometimes you push them the way that they ask, and sometimes you push them in a way that feels like taking your feet all the way off the gas. And that has also been like an interesting lesson as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how do you work through that in a session when you're working with folks, especially looking back over the 10 years? What are some of the
Yeah.
things that you've learned in that role?
Um, like I think that I've been like really looking back over my career and thinking, and have been thinking a lot about like, oh, what is my like personal investment? Like part of me nearing the 10-year is looking at my and revisiting my own like mission, vision, values,
Yeah.
and thinking like, what's working, what's not working, what's working, what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And there are moments in my career in which I think that I was like personally really, really seeking high intensity, like a hit workout basically of a session,
Sure.
like high intensity impact training, like
Yeah. More ways
a
than one.
high intensity, high impact. Let's go to
Mm-hmm.
the edge. Like, let's fucking do that. That's the niche that I'm
Yeah.
carving out for myself.
Yeah. High dose.
And I feel, yes, definitely. We're going in deep and we're going in hard, and we're not we're not going in slowly either.
Yeah, yeah. Sink or swim, sink or swim.
Yes, exactly. And now you're drowning.
Yeah, exactly. I'm there. I'll hold you. It's
Um,
fine.
yeah. And I am really, really grateful for everything that those sessions taught me. Like, I think often about like a specific session that I had not long after I read Sexuality Beyond Consent. And it was this one session in which this person had like come to me asking me, like, they were like, I'm having like difficulty and trouble like working through like specific psychological blocks, and I need help and like assistance working through those blocks. And
Mhm.
so we agreed to have like an introductory session that was a little bit more slow, sensual. He could understand what his pain tolerance was, he could understand all these different things. And then our second session was kind of like a perfect storm after our first, in which I asked, like, a friend of mine was doing her research and observed a lot of different sessions. I'm sure you are familiar with that friend. She
Uh-huh.
observed a lot of sessions of like New York City pro doms, I think from like 2022 to 2023. And we had this very interesting interaction where before our session, he emailed me a reflection of the first and said, "Oh, these are all of the things that I like really, really loved." And one of the moments that he mentioned really loving included something that I wasn't quite perceptive of that happened during the
Mm.
session. That was like a slight boundary violation for
Mhm.
me.
Mm.
Um, and it was also like a boundary that I like wasn't super intentional about holding. And it like broke the space of the container slightly.
Yeah.
And it was something that he did, and I could tell that he wanted, but he didn't explicitly ask for it. And so I used that as like fodder material during the actual second session, which was like one of the most, like, I think, impactful sessions that I've ever had. I know that he's ever had, which was essentially I could smell and like sense in him that he was consistently afraid of doing bad and like doing wrong.
Mm.
And so I told him at the beginning of the session, I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I really think that you are a good person. And the session that we're about to do is going to be really, really intense. And I want you to understand that, like, I don't mean any ill will towards you. I don't mean any harm. And I think that you're good fundamentally. And then during the session, I use like the actual material of what was happening between him and I during our first session, not like as a role play, but like legitimately like spoke directly to like the client provider dynamic and said that he like violated my boundaries, that he coerced me, that he was evil, that he had violent thoughts about women, that he did all these different things that he fundamentally did not understand or believe about himself.
Mhm.
And I think is also something that he is consistently like bracing himself against
Sure.
hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like just started punching him.
Mm, mhm.
And I think like and pushed him beyond the edge of like what he could handle or maintain on purpose, or like what he thought that he could handle and maintain on purpose. Like earlier when you were talking about the the moment of you push them too far and then they start crying. For me, I'm like, that's usually like the sign for me to go further.
Mm,
Like
mhm.
to stay in the beat of crying and to
Mm.
not like lessen the intensity of crying.
Yeah.
And I was like reading, he eventually like came down from that experience of crying. I was like reading my friend's notes about it after, and she wrote that he had been crying for about like 15 minutes, like
Mm.
15 to 20 minutes. And it was like almost like repulsive for her to like withstand. Like it was like a
Yeah.
difficult thing for her to like bear
Sure.
witness
Sure.
to. And we like came down and I like held him and I hugged him and I like told him like, hey, I know that this happened. I was just using this as material for our session. I know that you're a good person and I already forgave you like well before you stepped into the dungeon today.
Mhm.
And the first night that he came home, he sent me a reflection in which he was like spiraling. He was like, I'm second guessing even like petting my dog. And I said to
Oh.
him, like, hey, I hear you. I'm here with you. Sit in the feeling. Like, don't avoid it. Just sit in it and be with it. Allow it to like pass over you. You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Just sit with it. And then he emailed me again like a week later and he was like, I feel lighter than I've ever felt. He's like, I feel
Mm,
lighter than I have in maybe like 10 years.
yeah.
And I think that that was like definitely like a moment of like trust that I had to have both with myself and with him.
Right.
And he and I are still in contact. He like moved and like got into like left one relationship, got into another relationship, and I'm like really happy for him. He and I are still in contact. I think that he's doing really well.
Mm,
Um, and I am like really grateful that I was able
yeah.
to like learn what I needed to learn out of that session and also bring him to that place in that session. And I think a lot of my sessions like strove to hit the high of that session for a while.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they did. And I also think moderation is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I think that I've also learned a lot about like my own capacity for taking on that kind of
Sure.
like high intensity.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that level of, yeah, like I think that that is something that that kind of like high intensity session is something that I like deeply desire, but it's also something that like quite literally my emotional space cannot withstand um
Sure.
every session,
Oh,
which
sure.
is a good lesson to learn as you're getting
Yeah.
older. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your body's in that space. Even though you know you're taking them somewhere, your body is still having to actually take them there. And then
yeah.
naturally, as humans, we co-regulate. So when you see them in that distress, it's also the mirror neurons are going on in your body. So you are feeling that. Granted,
Yes.
taking the deep breath and holding the container with the power dynamic, but it's still happening through your body too, right?
Yeah.
Like when you see, like in my work, when I see clients going through like deep trauma processing, right? Like I am still in that space. And if you're really attuned to them and you're not numb as fuck,
Yeah.
you're gonna feel all of that. And then your sister just like,
Yes.
all right, I've got some drinks with my friends later. Right. Here, you like just go back into real, like quote unquote real life. You're like,
Totally.
what?
There's a joke about this is like joke that I talk about
Uh-huh.
sometimes, or like I describe this like experience sometimes of like the dungeons that are in New York City are a lot of them are in Manhattan, and it's one
Mm.
of the most disorganizing experiences to do the worst possible thing that you could possibly do to a person and then walk out onto the busy streets and be like, nobody knows that I just roleplayed a death with somebody. Nobody knows that I just made someone drink from his own butt. Like, how bizarre.
Oh, but there's the politics right there, right?
Or what do you mean by that? I'm curious.
Like the underground, you come up into the quote unquote norm, right? And it feels so
Yes.
bizarre, right? But here are these people. We know how prevalent king fantasies are, how many people come into your space, how many people crave that sort of edge and exploration. It's the taboo conversation, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
it's so taboo that when you come into the daylight, you truly feel like, what did I just do? And that is true in our society, but what does it say that it lives so much in the dark? It's a reflection of where it exists in our psyche, right? Which is in the
Yeah, totally.
forbidden, the dark basement that you're not supposed to talk about, which is often where suffering comes from. These parts of our consciousness that we feel like we can't share with others that are so wrong, that are so
Hmm.
forbidden, and AKA we're lacking connection around. That's where all the suffering comes from.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, yeah, you're like walking out into like the street and you cannot it's it's not responsible for you to stop the person that is closest in proximity to you and be like, "Do you know what I've just done?"
Yeah. But I wish, and
So
that's why
yeah.
you're here. You're shaking me and all of the listeners to tell me what you just did, right? It's so
Yeah,
needed. It's so
definitely.
needed, right?
Yeah. And it is like an interesting thing. I think, and I wonder this is also true for therapists, especially sex therapists, but something that I think started to take a toll on me was realizing like, oh, I'm having these like heightened, very, very intense experiences on the regular,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to like kink, because kink is like,
Right.
there's like a kind of obvious element of like sadism that happens in the process of the session. And it is because I've been doing it for so long, I think that I got a little uncalibrated to how often other people were doing kink, which is not to say like, oh, other people's tolerances should be like a gauge of my tolerance, but it is like helpful to remember sometimes, like, oh, yes, a person who is seeing me as like a client is not doing this like multiple times a month. Like a person who is seeing me as a client, well, I mean, might be seeing doing kink multiple times a month, but for the most part, like a lot of the people who see me, that's like their one kink experience per month or per 6 months or per year. Like that is, they're not regularly going into like that space. And I think continually also like being mindful of like, oh, because they're not regularly going into that space, the contrast for them then feels
Oh
like it feels different, and it feels like so much more of like an elevation, and being attuned to that contrast I think is like, it was like important for me to like maintain a memory of that, and like so I could be like more attuned to like the intensity of the experience relative to the everyday life.
yeah. Hmm.
um I mean, that's also another part of it, right? Like that is also like part of that politic as you described.
Right, yeah, the forbidden. So these are not
Hmm.
areas, especially when you think about therapy too. It's essentially building the emotional vocabulary, the capacity to feel, right? Under capitalism, a lot of people, this is their 1 hour that they feel that safe to do any of that, right? Where for me, I'm like spending like an 8 hour back to back 1 hour sessions, like in that level of like, yes, depth and so much feeling. And so then when I go to a party and someone's like, how's the weather? I feel like I want to die at that question because it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Who cares what the weather? Tell me about your childhood trauma. Like, what did your
yeah,
parents do to
totally.
you? You
Yeah,
know?
but how do you feel about the weather? Yeah. How's the weather? What is that weather evoking in you?
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But then that's also why people want to work with us, right? It's because like you
Yeah.
do have that like completely flipped reality where this is your norm, right? And so you
Yeah.
become like a craft, a surgeon of your own skill, right? I don't want to go to the surgeon who's nervous to pick up the scalpel. I want to go to the surgeon
Totally.
who's like, ah, another Tuesday. Here's the cut, here's the incision, you
Yes,
know?
definitely. Yes. And I was also thinking about that because I have been, okay, I have two questions for you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, One of them is like, okay, well, first I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that because for a period of time I was doing literally so much scalpel work in
Hmm.
my work.
Right.
And that was really, really fun. I also was doing a lot of needles, was doing generally like
Hmm.
a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And I feel like it gave me like a lot of thoughts and feelings about the medical industrial, just like the
Yeah.
medical industry, period, because there were so many different times in which I was doing something that felt literally forbidden, which is like cutting somebody open.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, doctors must be a little bit maladjusted.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
because you really have to, like, in some ways, kind of hold this double existence of both being attuned to somebody's feeling, which is honestly the major part and parcel of the job of like the nurse, which is interesting that they kind of like separate the two.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
and then, but also be like disattuned to somebody's like experience of like fear. And you have to kind of hold like a certain kind of certainty to override someone else's fear of pain. And that, in my opinion, like being completely and totally carefree of somebody else's pain, that is like a sadism, you know? Like
Mhm.
to do that for the betterment of other people or for the betterment of yourself, like whether that's like prestige, honor, income, whatever that is like a kind of sadism. And that is like a wild experience to me. But yeah, I think that the question that I was going to ask you is like, if you slash when you find yourself investing so much into your emotional space professionally and living in like a really entrenched like emotional world professionally, what do you like? What does decompressing look like?
Yeah, that's a great question and one I'm still figuring out for myself. Because it's different, doing yoga, going for a walk, editing the podcast, rock climbing with friends, fucking, eating some good food, playing with my cat. Okay, but here's the thing. So I don't know if I want to decompress. Do you know what I mean? And this is, as my partner reminded me this weekend, don't live in a cage, Nicole, with your own intellectual pursuits. But like, I have a weird fucking job. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? As do you, right? And so, like, I took out $500,000 in student loans as a first
Mm,
generation student to become a
mm,
doctor of a certain type of intellectual pursuit. And
right.
now people pay money to be in my consciousness and sit with me.
Yeah.
I find that fucked up. I don't think that I
Yeah.
should have to pay this amount of money to get access to this sort of insight to then charge people to have access to a conversation with me for this sort of, I mean, am I doing it under capitalism? Yeah. And now here I am. And also, I
Yeah.
do think that my job is to like make sure that this field does not perpetuate into the future.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like so
Yes.
like when I do get upset about all of the weights of clients and all this sort of stuff, I don't take it as like, ah, that's the job. I'm just gonna go to bed at night. I do sit with that of like, what does it mean that like people don't have these skills and we're in these places and all this sort of stuff. And so as you can hear, then decompressing really for me looks like finding like a intellectual answer to why this is occurring, and so I just
Yeah.
keep spinning my wheels and wheels and wheels and wheels about it until I feel some sort of like great, like I'm making a free resource like a podcast and trying to like break down the barriers into some sort of like quote unquote relationship with me or consciousness with me.
Yeah. You're kind of doing like carbon offsetting a little bit.
Trying.
Like, but like the like emotional capitalistic version or anti-capitalistic version of that.
As much as I can while still living in the system because I do have to survive. So, like, thank God all my clients who do pay for me to exist, right? So I could do
Yeah.
this. And then trying to offer sliding scale as much as possible, especially in my group dynamics where I can like really offset that cost with the people who pay full rates and try to create that sort of space. But I find it fucked up. I shouldn't have to be in $500,000 of student debt for this information. The things that I learned in psychology school are things that all of us should have access to. Understanding of how the brain works, how relationship works, how the body works, systems of oppression, diversity. Like those aren't things that we should be locking behind ivory towers and like a quote unquote piece of paper.
Totally. Absolutely. Do you feel like the majority of your waking hours are spent around like your job or things related to your job or how to offset your job or the ways that you are relating in your job?
Yes, and I think that's bad. I think that I'm having a hard time
Totally.
with it. I think I am
Yes.
having a hard time with that. Because when you came on 5 years ago, you're like, oh, you're studying relationship anarchy. What have you learned? And I don't think I had a good answer for you at the time, because at the time it was just the beginning and I picked it as a topic. I hadn't even wrote the dissertation or any of that stuff. And so then I studied this like concept of power structures in relationships and how they're everywhere inside our psyche and impact everything. So if we come from that baseline that the personal is the political, then yeah, every single moment that I'm living my life is a moment to examine, right? This conversation I'm having every time I do anything. So you could see how you could just get absolutely lost in your head and not actually live or play when everything becomes like a moment of examination. So
Yes, definitely.
I'm trying to work
Oh,
on that.
girl. And I'm like talking to my friends about it. And like a lot of my friends are like people that I work with or have worked with before, or people who are like also like thinking through like similar questions and conversations. And so like it becomes this like really built out. And like I can imagine that you are surrounding yourself with very like-minded community and all these different things. And like, yeah, you're like consistently like bumping up against those questions for yourself and like consistently living in that emotional intellectual space.
Yep.
Your vocal
Yep.
cords must be very tired.
Yeah. I appreciate that acknowledgement. The wild part is like there are days where I get into this job and I'm like, this job is fucking insane, right? Like this
Yes.
client is yelling at me and I'm trying to be soft and understand like which parts are their trauma coming out and which part is it me? Did I say something? Right? It's always a yes
Right.
and, but like how am I supposed to separate that, right? And at the same time, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you resonate. Like, I wouldn't want to. Do you
I
want to
do.
go to a bank job and just sit and sell stocks? Like, what the?
Yeah. 9 to 5 is not for me. I
No,
had a
exactly.
moment earlier this year where I was just like, maybe I hate all of it. Maybe I like hate all of it and I don't want to do any of this and I don't know how to do anything else, but maybe I should just get a part-time job and maybe I should just like maybe I should like free myself from this like beautiful prison that I've created for myself and I should just find a corporate job,
Yeah,
make my
yeah,
life easier.
yeah,
And then I came out of that and I was like, hey, I'm actually just scared.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's actually what that is.
Yeah. What are you afraid of?
I think what was actually happening was that I was being unboundaried in my work. And
Mm,
this is something that I also think a lot about in terms of like people who are operating in like the intellectual, emotional space.
yeah.
That I was being really unboundaried in my work and realized that because I'm so different from like the community that I grew up in, I thought that I was immune to like taking on other people's like wants and aspirations, that I
Yeah.
was always the one who was in control. And then I think I accidentally did it again and recreated that pattern, but just with like the community that I chose as an adult, as opposed to being
Mm,
like, okay, what do I personally want? As opposed to like, what is it that other people want around me? Um,
mm,
so I think that a lot of the past year has been disentangling myself from like the aspirations and desires that I feel like I should have
mm.
and reorienting towards like, oh, well, I actually don't need to make $500,000 a year. I don't want to make $500,000 per year. Like that would create a lifestyle that is actually not that much more beneficial than the lifestyle that I currently have. Like I actually want to have sessions that are good, and by good I don't necessarily mean financially. Like I want to have sessions that are connective and invested and with people who are like coming to me and we're not speaking only in the language of like an erotic compulsion, but we're like actually like investigating the places that they have like never been before, like and are interested in going.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think another part of that was like for me, sessions are such a creative space, like
Yeah.
always have been. And this year I felt for the first time like creative burnout. And it scared the
Mm,
fuck out of me.
mm.
I was like, there was like a period of time, and I'm not going to name which period. But I was like coming into sessions being like, ugh, like trying to like run out the clock. And I was like,
Sure.
who am I? What the fuck is happening? I've
Yeah.
never felt this way about like pro doming before. I've never felt this way about my job. And I think a lot of that was also that like I had crafted so much of my life to be invested in BDSM, leather lifestyle, kink community, professional doming, sex worker rights, organizing, all these different things that are
Yeah.
like swirling in and around this
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
that I didn't have a personality outside of that. And it was making me like I was having creative burnout because I was drawing from like an echoing well that
Mm,
was dry and
mm,
empty.
mm.
And it was because I didn't have pursuits outside of this thing. And I wasn't like newly engaging with material outside of and irrelevant or like seemingly irrelevant to my work and my job. And so I
Yeah.
couldn't bring anything new to the job and was like relying on the
Mm,
other people to like bring in things for me as opposed to like
sure.
me bringing
Yeah.
my own personal voice, style, etc., based off of like the experiences that I was having.
Right.
Like I created a personal curriculum for myself in the summertime. Yeah, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm it's also been like enough time since grad school has passed that I was like, what is missing? And then I realized that I wasn't in structured learning.
Mm,
And I needed that space. Like I needed something to like give myself space and room to figure out like what is it that I like, what is it that I don't like, what is it that's like
Yeah.
piquing my curiosity, my interest. So creating that personal curriculum for myself was very helpful. And like exercising different parts of my brain, I think was
Sure.
also like a really, really helpful endeavor. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that's like part of the reason why I asked that question to you of like, do you feel like most of your waking life is like spent and oriented around like the emotional world and like investigating and untangling like emotional worlds with other people and yourself and your psyche and your consciousness? Because if so, that's really awesome. And also, like, I imagine that that can also be very exhausting.
Yeah, the listeners can't see me just being, oh, head nodding. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I was also going to think about was that like you've also accomplished this like huge professional endeavor, you know? And there's like an additional extremely celebratory aspect, like an extremely celebratory mark that gets to like be added to your understanding of your like ego and identity. And I'm often thinking about like, oh, how much of me exists in my like public identity, which to a certain degree is like encapsulated in your like doctor honorific,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That like you're like, oh, I'm a professional sex therapist and thinker and podcaster. Like this is all part of my like professional world
Yeah.
versus how much of you do you keep just for you or just for you and your partner or just for you and your friends? I don't know. I feel like those are all like questions that I have been having to like tease out and tease through for the past like several years.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially when you play a certain role, especially when I
Definitely.
when I imagine the Dom role, I because you're playing with people's psyche, and so I imagine like the softer parts of you are not what they're coming to see. Those moments where you're crying in your own experience, right? It would almost break the frame of what they're coming for, depending on your role and how you see that. Because I don't know how much you play in that space of more authentic. I mean, it's always
Hmm.
authentic, but like what parts of
Yeah.
yourself? Um, and for the therapy side, there's a deep view with the Freudian analysis world where it's like tabula rasa. I'm supposed to be this complete blank
Yeah.
slate. If you were to ask me questions like this in session, I'd say, what would it mean to you to know my answer? And just completely deflect, 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 which I
Yeah,
find to be
totally.
bullshit, which
Yeah,
I think there's a way to hold the session where I can be like, this is about you, and I'm gonna make sure everything is about you in this time, so the energy flows in that way while still being like, hey, this is my authentic positionality in the world. I personally
totally.
want to know where my therapist is coming from. It's really informative to know where their biases might be based on their lived experience, identity, culture. I fucking want to know that stuff because it informs
Definitely.
how they relate to me. And so I think that's fair, to be able to have that sort of discussion where you can be authentic in those pieces. Now, yeah, I think what I've been working through and having some grief recently was when I found that some of my therapy clients had also gone to the same play parties and spaces and dungeons in Chicago. And what that meant for me to be like, oh, right, these sacred spaces for me where I've gone and played and had these scenes and I'm on drugs and I'm not in a moment to be able to like show up in the quote unquote role of what I do, right? Like
Yeah.
is now like stripped away and
Hmm.
one of my supervisors was like, like that's okay. Like you're in the community, you're a part of the community, and you're a leader in the community. Like go be in those spaces, but that's still a lot to like, the traditional psychotherapy. People freak out about just seeing a client at a grocery store, let alone like me tied up on a cross being whipped, you know what I mean? And having dildos in my
Totally.
mouth. Like, hey, client, what's up? But like, what does it mean to
Yeah.
also stand there and that and be like, hey, this is what I believe in. This is what I believe is real experience of
Yeah.
human life. And I'm
Hey, I'm
passionate.
practicing what I'm preaching right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. But you tell that to a licensing board, or any other sort of like professional group, they might be like, you did what? And it's like, well, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? Not live what I.
Yeah. Not live my truth.
Yeah. Apparently,
Yeah.
just hide under a rock and be like, hey, I believe in these things, but because I'm supposed to be a quote unquote professional, I can't go do them anymore because that would do what? That's the moment like you coming out from the ground and being like, I just did what with my hour, right? It's like
Yes.
this grinding and friction between the quote unquote professional, which we know where that comes from, like
Yeah.
all the white patriarchal bullshit with the buttons, and like the
Policing.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah,
So it's fascinating.
it is. It is. And like it's interesting to to talk about it out loud and to categorize it into boxes, but it's also interesting to think about how it's like how we like bodily integrate the idea of like the
Mhm.
professional or the public.
Yes.
Um and like how we like move around the world differently in relation to
Yeah.
these like kind of like, you know, artificial distinctions between like spaces of like professional, private, public, personal, all these different things. I think it is like I have definitely noticed myself interacting with the world differently because I'm like nervous about how I'm going to be perceived or like
Yeah.
to what degree I need to be like responsible to the world in a particular way or I need to like show up for the world in like a particular way. And also like, you know, how much of that is also a different version of me also policing myself but
Mm-hmm.
repackaged, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um Yeah, or how easily that wire can be tripped from like thinking intentionally. The cars outside my window just like did an aria together. It was kind of beautiful.
New York, baby.
um, Funked an aria. They call the new Rosalia
Uh-huh.
album. But yeah, how easily that wire can be tripped and how easily you can like slide from thinking about like, oh, I'm intentionally making moves about how I want to hold myself in the world and like act in the world and what I want to show up as in the world versus like, well, I have to show up in the world this way because like my professional like obligations say that I have to, or I believe that that's what it means to like be a professional. Like it's like a really fascinating and it's like really interesting to watch that happen in like real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I imagine when I'm sitting at a dinner table and I'm talking about my day or the things I'm exploring, I have that deeper question of can I say this with my authentic voice and normal cadence and projection? Or do I need to, oh, well, we were talking about how someone has this wedgie kink and so this thing, right? Like, do you, like when you're talking about your day and what happened, do you whisper? Because you're at a restaurant and you're thinking about the context of everyone else who's enjoying their meal and the things that would probably quote unquote ruin their dinner if they heard you, right? Versus the
Mm.
authenticity of like, this is just my normal day and what happened to me and what I what I'm doing with my world. I imagine it's really something that like you have to like gauge who you're sitting with. When you're sitting with a bunch of other pro doms, it's much easier of a conversation. And I imagine you probably feel seen in ways that many other people cannot see you. And so then I imagine a lot of isolation of feeling like no one else, we're already isolated existentially, up in here, but especially so when you do a really unique role where other people don't understand what it's like to be in the dungeon for that many hours, doing this many scenes and having this many people cry and be afraid to pet their dog afterwards. Like, how many people can
Totally.
you really talk to? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, I've been there too. I imagine
Yeah,
very few.
totally. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also kind of like, I'm glad that not everybody
Yeah. 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 I'm
like,
curious. I'm curious, like, how do you fuck? You know what I mean? Like, I do all this stuff,
yeah,
and I think it's made it harder to fuck, honestly, because like, fucking used to be this like play space, and like, I definitely think there's like an arc, where like I'm learning lots of skills, getting more confident, getting more embodied. Oh my god, and then you just keep intellectualizing, and now it seems like the curve is going
yeah,
down, and maybe it will go back up. But like, I'm just like, oh god, so many thoughts. What about a research study with this way? What about this? What about that? What about this? What? It's like the curve is going down when you become too
yeah,
intellectual.
totally. Oh my goodness, totally. I well, I'm curious about like, okay, can I request
Yeah.
like more specificity in that question?
Do you play with power dynamics in your own life? And how do you do that when that's also your job?
Yes, that is a great question. I do play with power dynamics in my own life. I have like my own personal partner, and then I also have like an additional play partner who I have like a really, really beautiful service dynamic with.
Mm.
My partner also has somebody in their life who they're in a service dynamic with. And so it's like a little bit of like, people are always wanting to know, like, what do you like with your girlfriend? And I'm like, you fucking want to know. It's top for top, switch for switch, obviously. Yeah.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But yeah, I think that there's something that is like really, really beautiful. I do play with personal partners, and I think that that's like really healing for me. Like, I think
Yeah.
that it's like really incredible to have like a space in which I'm like, well, this is truly how I want to fuck. You know, this is
Mhm.
truly the things that I want to do.
Mm.
And obviously, it's not like I'm like doing things that are beyond the other person's like desire
Right.
or anything like that, but it is like a place in which I actually do get to actively and overtly organize like my desire, that is freed not only from the expectation of like professional dom, but also freed from the expectation that comes with a transaction.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that is like something that has been like just like really unique and like really healing. It's like finding other kind of like cuckoo bitches who are
Yeah.
like who operate at like the same level of intensity that I do and understand like what it is that I'm going through and moving through. And we
Mm-hmm.
just like get to provide like a really beautiful space for each other.
Mm.
And I always like, I have been saying this since 2020 that like fucking your friends is mutual aid. If everybody's like involved, everybody like is down for it, having like a safe space in which like sometimes it's like, and a lot of the times it's like very platonic, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that like having sex is like a really beautiful way to spend platonic time with your friends if
I
that's
love that
something that you're
sentence.
open to and down for.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of people are just like, but it doesn't feel the same as like when I'm getting like dickmatized by like my hot partner or my
Yeah.
crush or whatever it is. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's not supposed to. Those are two different
Yeah.
types of relationships. So of course they're gonna feel different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I view like fucking my friends as kind of like an extension of hanging out. It's just like a
Yeah.
very special kind of hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my personal like romantic relationship, we fist each other a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's less so like power focused and power engaged. And it just like is actually a lot more focused on like us being in love with each other, which is also a different kind of power exchange.
Mm-hmm. 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 In the
Yeah.
psyche. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
definitely. Like a lot of
Mm.
it is like, you're gonna love me forever. Yeah, I'm gonna love you forever. You're gonna love me forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Cute.
yeah. And so that is like a really, it's like so warm and loving and
Yeah.
beautiful. And I wish that for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It is really incredible because my partner is like we're able to like bring each other to like really intense like physical depths,
Oh
but
yeah.
it comes with like the emotional safety of
Oh
like romantic stability.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means you cry even harder and you come even harder. And sometimes at the same
Yeah.
time with that person, you know,
Yeah,
like,
girl, you fucking know what it's
yeah,
like.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Whoa. Wow, you see me in all the mess and the hot part. Wow, like it's just so
Yeah.
much.
You love me
Yeah.
even more. You want to fuck me even more? That's
Right,
crazy.
exactly. Right, 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 right. Wow, wow.
That's kooky.
Mm-hmm,
Never experienced
mm-hmm,
anything like it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you fuck?
Mm. These days I fuck myself a lot, honestly. That's been
Ours.
I love like before I do the intros to the episode. I don't do it for the actual episode like when I'm coming into you because like too time dependent. But when I make the
Yeah,
intros to the podcast, I always like masturbate beforehand and have like
that's beautiful.
thank you. It's been great. And really to like see where I want to go with what I'm creating and what I'm doing in this space and then
Yeah.
straight up like come hard and run over to the mic and be like,
That's awesome.
on today's episode. Yeah.
Yeah. People can like smell the sex in the air,
Thank you.
like when
That
they're
is the
listening to your
intent.
podcast.
That is the
Yeah.
intent. Quite literally is, can you feel it on my breath? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I am
That's
gracing
so
you.
hot.
You know, that's like the best I can do in this sort of, ooh, you know. So I do a lot of that, but even that's been a really complicated thing because then think about, I've been doing that, I've been doing that for a year now.
Wow.
Okay. When this comes out, it'll be like a year and a half. So like think
Damn.
about what sort of if we think about neuronal pathways and conditioning, I am now conditioning my orgasm to a moment where I'm thinking about like production, which is beautiful, but then like I think I didn't touch myself in terms of just pure play and enjoyment for months because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, let me save that erotic energy for when I make my intro and this, that, you know, but like,
Yes.
you
I'm
have
doing
to be
semen
careful.
retention for work.
Exactly.
You do have to be careful about that. Girl, you do have to fucking be careful about that. When you're like associate too much of your cum with like your professional life. I feel like that's what I'm talking about, where I'm just like, I think it's really beautiful and it's amazing and it's like so nourishing for like your understanding of yourself and your identity. But also at the same time, sometimes you just got a nut. Like
I
you just
know.
got a nut for you and nobody else. You got a nut for you off mic.
I know, right? I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's like literally the complexity of doing that, right? Is when does it become so much of production? And even like you said at the beginning, so much of creating for other people versus intaking for yourself, right? Like how do we find
Yes.
that balance between like coming for the creative act and also just coming for play and pleasure, right? Like, but I love a
Definitely.
creative act. It is play and pleasure. And that's usually when my brain goes like, no, like I love the
Yeah.
art I make, but it's also like, yeah, but then it's so in the production, like you
Yes.
got to do it for yourself.
It's almost like it's like the the like progressive version of like sex is for reproduction. You know what I mean? Like
Fuck.
you're doing a version of that. You're like your monkey brain is like recreating that, but you're just like, yes, but it is for like creative and artistic production. It is for like a different kind of birth, but it's still for birth, you know?
Literally.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To think about.
It is. It is. It is. I mean, I broke the spell recently after a hot date. You know, I was like, damn, damn. You know, like the teasing. You go home and you're like really excited. You know, about it all.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that definitely broke the spell there. But yeah, it's fascinating in terms of how deep you can get conditioned into it. I also have been doing a lot of like kitchen table dynamics, like scenes with multiple partners and like being topped by all of them, and that has been really profound to really like work through all the fears around like kitchen table and all of the dynamics of what that means. I've noticed that my fears are much more tied to like masc and male partners. In the queer space, it feels like there's much more freedom to create relationships and dynamics, but I think there's so much internalized conditioning around men and masculinity and the narratives of what those mean. And so when I start bringing in multiple men to fuck me at one point, it messes with my psyche in ways that I haven't experienced in my queer dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, what's the fear? Like when you're like, oh, I feel like I'm hearing you say that you're like sensing like a threat
Yeah.
when there's like masculine energy in that space for you.
Yeah, I think it's because I've had male partners in the past who have really struggled with the concept of quote unquote sharing me. You know what I mean? Like they see me in
Yeah.
this vision of the housewife at home who is just theirs and their property, you know, even if they might not put
Yeah.
in those words, that's where that
Yeah.
comes from, right? And so I've had like male partners who are like, yeah, I'm totally on board with the polyamory, and then be like really cagey with my other male partners, and you can like sense that shit where you're like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, like you are not vibing here. Your energy is off. And so finding male partners who are both on board, like I had so much fear that I just remember being at a play party and having both of them kiss me, and I couldn't shake this feeling that like if I kiss the other one in front of the other, even though they know that I'm like with both, but like to have them both visually see it, that like they would leave me and say this is too much, and I just kept naming it to them when I was there at the party. I was like, I'm so afraid, and like literally both of them put their hands on my chest and just rubbed my chest like, it's okay, it's okay,
Yeah.
Nicole, like it's okay. And then we were in like a hallway and they were taking turns going down on me, and I was just like standing there like having both these men on their knees looking at my pussy, and I was like, right, this is my life, like I get to have, like it's a lot
Hey,
to like.
that's fucking awesome. Yeah. Chair that supports front and back. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, man. Like it's a lot to go through, like mentally, you
Yeah.
know? Um, yeah, so that's really my edge. And there's just something really beautiful that I really cherish about my queer relationships because I think they're already so much off the scripts. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
queer relationships live in this beautiful land, yeah, of like freedom and capacity and space. And I haven't been internalized with the Disney narrative of like this prince who's gonna sweep me off my feet. And so there's so much more space where I don't think I've had to work through the same like psychological milieu and mess and muck to get out of.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's almost like a prescriptive like substream that you're on autumn you're like slotted into when you're like relating to like masculine energy. That you're like, I don't feel like it's as amorphous and like nebulous, or even maybe it's like you trying to like escape the expectation of that they might not even have of you, but you have of yourself.
Right.
And like also I feel like a lot of it is like that decoupling from like objectifying yourself, you know? And like trying really hard to not think about yourself or understand yourself as like belonging to one or either, or like property that is then like split up and shared in like tragedy of the common.
Right.
um and being like, oh, I actually want this, like actively saying like, I want this, I want both of you. I'm not going to keep a scorecard about how many times I kiss you and then kiss the other person the exact same number of times,
Yeah, that
because
hits.
it's all going to work out in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that hits.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been in a similar, like a similar journey through the psyche.
Yes, I think I have been having a lot of thoughts also about like poly in the past year.
Tell me.
And I think like I still identify, me and my partner like describe ourselves as like gay monogamous or like leather
Mm,
monogamous, which is
mm-hmm.
like fuck other people, have other like kind of, you know, service relationships, like other kind of like DSs, do what you gotta do, but like do what you want to do, I should say, not what you gotta do. But I think I no longer identify as like polyamorous, and I no longer like relate to polyamory in the same way that I used to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did notice myself when I was poly doing that kind of emotional scorekeeping, and it
Mm,
was fucking me up really big. And I think that
sure.
it incited like a kind of avoidance in me that I had just never seen before. It was like
Sure.
completely foreign to me. And then I think like it took up so much of my emotional space and energy
Yeah.
that it was like all the love was so much more than a sum of its parts, but also like all the emotional processing and avoidance and hurt. And like
Mm,
the hard work was also a lot more than the sum of its parts as well.
yeah.
Yeah. Which is not to say that I don't believe in polyamory. I think I'm like, I know people who have like done polyamory like really successfully. And I still consider myself as like someone who has done polyamory like successfully.
Mm-hmm.
It's also just to say like, oh, I see personally for myself that it triggers a kind of avoidance that I never want to embody, or I'm not
Mm,
interested in embodying.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of the relationship anarchist conversation about deconstructing the labels to see what they mean for you or just throwing them out completely. There's a lot of people who say, I have multiple friendships. And the thought
Yeah.
being that when you say friend, it's not associated with so much more internalized scripts. Like if I say I have
Yes.
a wife or a husband, there's like a certain level of expectation that starts to go with that word and therefore
Yeah.
really creates that reality. And so if you're like, oh, I have all these friends, some of them I fuck or have these service
Yes.
dynamics, it almost creates more space for your psyche to be unburdened with like the chains of the narratives of what those mean.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Or like even like what we were talking about, like even in our professional lives, I have so much intimacy in my professional life as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is like an additional, and I'm assuming that you do as well. Like, and it often does like really fill my cup, both like in terms of erotic energy and also creative energy. Like
Mm-hmm.
the people that I like play with professionally are sometimes like feel like patrons or like artistic collaborators, and that is like a
Mm-hmm.
really cool, or like duo partners that I play with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like other doms that come in and co-top with me or that I co-top with them, like that is also
Right.
like a kind of like deep and intense intimacy. And
Totally.
I think, yeah, it is kind of exactly what you said of like feeling the urge both to avoid and resistance to like prescription and prescriptiveness, but also wanting to carve out like what that means for me personally.
Right. Right.
And yeah, as opposed to like, oh, these are what other people have done in their resistance to like the norm or like their countercultural efforts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what does it mean to you to be crafting this expansive web of community, which includes clients, patrons of the arts, friends that you fuck with platonically, which God, we got to unpack that for our younger selves who would be like, what are they talking about? I feel like I see
Yes.
you and I love that. I just know my younger self would be like, what are they saying? This is
Now, what
how?
does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Is it just casual? I think it's way more than that. I think it's loving friendship, at least for
It is
me when
loving
yeah.
friendship. Yeah, it is for me as well. Like, it is like deep and loving friendship. And it is like, I think that's something that is really nice is like, there are like certain kinds of like depth of respect and intimacy that happens when you go through different parts of life with friends, and that, like some friends open a business together, and that is like a very intense kind of like
Yeah.
friendship for them, and that deepens their relationship because now their relationship holds not only both their friendship but also their business partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Some friends, I don't know, like carry each other through grief, right? I
Yeah.
had like a friend who I like supported when her like late partner of like 4 to 6 years passed away. And that is like a different kind of friendship. And I don't even want to say like a different level of friendship because it's
Mm-hmm.
not just a different level of friendship. It's that like you're doing friendship in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just doing more of friendship, like
Right.
you have to engage in it in a different way. And I feel the same about like going to like an intimate space with someone and like having like a kind of like intimate interaction with a friend where if you are engaging in like sex with your friend or like a kind of erotics or intimacy with your friend, you're having like a different kind of, there's like a new facet to your friendship that gets to be unlocked and like a different way of like engaging in like things that might be tenuous or things that might be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So my like service submissive play partner, she and I have been playing for like 6 years now. Like
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
like one of my longest lasting like intimate relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very like platonic with each other, but we're also like deeply respectful to each other. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that respect was like built out of us like playing together, us
Yeah.
like learning what the other person likes, also us misunderstanding each other and like correcting those misunderstandings and then being like, oh, I see what it is that like happens for you. And I see like what it is that you're moving through. And I see
Yeah.
like how to take care of you over time. And like this is like a skill that I've like acquired over time that I'm also consistently learning because your needs are consistently changing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and because we're both changing as people.
Yeah.
Um, and we've like supported each other through breakups, and it has come with like a kind of really beautiful, like we switched our, or we, I shouldn't say switch, but like added a service element.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe like almost exactly 3 years ago.
Mm.
And it is like a really, really beautiful, it's a really beautiful addition to our friendship.
Yeah.
Like that is something that I feel is like a really, it's like a really important friendship to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I know what I can like rely on her for. And I
Yeah.
know that she always like, she might not be thinking about me all the time in the way that like you would be thinking about a romantic partner all the time.
Mm.
And I don't think about her all the time in the way that I think about a romantic partner with frequency. But I and know that we both always have like each other's like best interests in mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is a really cool way to feel.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah. And then I think about like other friends who I have like been intimate with in the past and what that intimacy has like ferried them through and what that intimacy
Mm.
has like opened up in me. And
Hmm.
um yeah, and like I have like a friend with whom we have like a very, very intense like play chemistry, and it feels like very cosmic and
Yeah.
very awesome and amazing. And a little she's like a kind of like insane Chinese woman. And I feel like she's so like beautiful. She's so beautiful. It's Cleo. Like we have
Amazing.
like a very like intense and beautiful like play chemistry, and we've done like such incredible scenes together.
Mm.
And like the frequency of us playing has like decreased since she's like moved to California, and
Mm. Sure.
um all these different things, but like we have like an investment in each other and like a commitment to each other to like rekindle that like once a year. And I think that that's something that is also like really amazing.
Yeah.
And the depths that we've like taken each other to have been profound. We've each independently had what we call like artist residencies, which are kind of
Mm.
like prolonged like BDSM scenes that usually last anywhere between 24 hours to like 10
Yeah.
weeks.
Wow. I love it.
Um, yeah. And I think the year that you and I recorded our podcast, I was like maybe in the middle of like one with her, or maybe it happened later in the year, but like, yeah. And usually like those artist residencies are there for the function of like us working through something that is like happening in our personal life,
Mm.
and like learning, and like the other person who's like supporting it like gets to learn a lot about like what it means and what they discover
Yeah.
in holding that container for the other person.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There are all these different ways that I think like friendship, like kind of what you were talking about a bit about being against like prescription, or like being or operating outside of prescription, where friendship gets to like take on all these forms. And like intimacy also like is not confined only to your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or your boyfriend or your partner or whatever it is. Like intimacy happens like everywhere, and it
Yeah.
has the opportunity to like show up everywhere in your
Oh,
life.
yeah.
That's like a really cool like way of living, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've said that I want to do two things with my career, which is to dismantle rape culture and
Uh-huh.
invite the world to reflect on the reality that we all have multiple relationships.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
think that if I ended my career as like everyone's at least thinking in that frame of like, this is a relationship that we're creating in this podcast right now. This is a relationship with any, like that frame, I think would go a long way to more intentionality as well as breaking
Yes.
down the scripts, right? Life is all about the intangibles in terms of the meaning making, right? Of we have the sex act, but it's the story that we make about it. It's the meaning that we make of it from there, right? And so even just painting back to my old consciousness coming from purity culture and all of that, right? Like these acts of eroticism were only in the framework of a one person lifelong marriage that I'd be with forever. And so when you give me this world of all these other types of ways of relating and being with your body and being in eroticism, my brain would literally shudder and like self combust at the thought because it's so outside of the frame, right? And even for most of us, there's this very linear intimacy escalator of what it means to engage in these acts. But I personally find it so beautiful what you're speaking to, which is this really big, open, creative space where you can be in your body and make meaning of it between the two of you rather than the scripts, rather than the expectations. Really, what's there for the two of you, or three or four, how many other hands we can get
Yeah.
inside this
Six,
dynamic.
seven, who's to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Come on, come on. Um, and also like it almost feels like it like gets outside of the stickiness of the narratives of romance are often so entrapped in idealistic fantasies of who this other person can be. Ideally, the older and more grounded we get, the more we realize that humans are messy, are going to fail you. You're going to be angry. You're going to be annoyed by the person that you love and whoever's in that romance category, right? And it seems like as a society, we have way more space for that as friends, where we can understand that and ebb and flow with that easier. But because of the narratives of romance, it's much harder to do. And we often go through a lot of grief and pain and suffering as we realize that our lover is also a human being full of flaws and imperfect
Yeah.
realities, right? And so it seems like almost when you get to play and have eroticism with friends, you're kind of like less in that sticky web of the like cocaine phase of thinking about that person all the time, putting them up on the pedestal, all these
Yeah.
fantasies. You get to really be present with your friend, with what is. I mean, I find that so beautiful.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
And also thinking a lot about like what I've learned in my romantic relationships and applying them to my friendships as well. You
Yeah.
know, like I have honeymoon phases in my friendships, you
Yeah.
know, like I have
Totally.
phases in my friendships where I'm like, oh my God, this person is so cool and so
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And also I just want to be like them.
Exactly.
And then we get to big conflict about whatever year that is. And then I'm just like, hey, you fucking betrayed me.
Yeah.
And I feel like let down or abandoned by you. And like being willing and like excited to like work through those problems in
Mm,
and like also being like, okay, you know, I don't necessarily want to live as if that is like a prescription, but if that happens in a friendship, it's not necessarily like as devastating because I can understand that like because it is a kind of intimacy, like that is also it's also not unlikely that that's going to happen there as well because I'm also
yeah.
like the same person, you know,
Yep.
I'm dealing internally with the same psychological cycles and the same conflicts. And like, that's going to show up for me, not just in my romantic relationships, but also in friendships, in work life,
Mhm.
in my dynamic with my parents, obviously,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
family. So, and like whatever you define as family, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
totally. Yep, yep, yep,
So
yep, yep.
it is like a really, really beautiful I feel like these past 4 years have really been like also really like friendship stock way the fuck up, you
Hell
know?
yeah. Investing there, investing there. The dividends
Yeah,
are great.
fucking yes, the dividends of friendship stock are high. High.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some financial advice for the listeners for sure.
Yes, definitely. I love my friendships and
Mm.
I am really and also like I have rekindled friendships that I had like that I or that friend or both of us had like put on pause for years. And like that is
Cool.
also kind of like an incredible perspective that literally only time can grant. Is
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, working through some shit, couldn't work it out in the moment. You know, it will heal unless somebody dies, which also is a possibility. Time will
Right.
heal that wound, you
Right.
know?
Right. Man, does it hurt
Yeah.
when you're in it though, and you're like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it is really, really incredible. And finding friendships that are like, I think also something that was very, very helpful for me was like investing in friendships that are outside of industry and
Oh
like
yeah.
that, like investing in friendships also in people who like who lead a very different life than me, but
Mhm.
understanding that fundamentally our values are the same, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like it can be a person who like leads a very, very different lifestyle or like a person who like is operating under very different like material conditions or like circumstances.
Sure.
But like at the heart of it all, like we like they understand like who I am as a person and not just who I am as an identity. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And those two things are different. um, yeah, and
Yeah.
that and like somebody who has also been able to like with the passage of time like witness my changes and cycles
Mm,
and like my evolution and I get to witness theirs and
right.
how powerful that is as like an experience to have friendship for so long.
I know.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, the beauty, the pain of intimacy all in one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I'm curious as we're coming towards our closing, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Mm. It's so funny because I'm like, this question always catches me off guard.
It's good. It's always has to be in the moment. You have to be with it right now.
hmm I think it would be two things.
Hmm.
I think A, fuck up, do it, just do it. Just fuck up. Just make the fuck up.
I'm scared.
Don't be afraid of it. I mean, you're going to be afraid of it. You're still going to do it anyway. Um, and then the second is document everything.
Mm,
I think like having, which I think that to a certain degree I did do a lot of, and I'm really
yeah,
grateful that I did that.
yeah, yeah,
But also like getting to go back and like just review like where the fuck I have come from. Like
yeah,
getting to listen to our podcast from 4 years ago, getting to read my journals from 3 years ago,
yeah.
looking through photos and pictures and just like thinking about like the emotional tenor of my life, having like I have like private social media that like only like a handful of people follow,
Yeah, yeah,
that is just like me documenting like my emotional states, and
mm,
that is like a really beautiful practice that I think,
yeah,
like I think that social media can be fraught and evil and bad, and I think that social media, the corporation, etc., but I also think like having, it doesn't have to be on social media. You could just like have it in like a location for yourself where you're just like
yeah.
documenting your emotional world, and like in writing and in images and in the art that you make. And
Hmm.
that I think is really helpful both for like your own examination of your emotional growth, and also a friend of mine is going through something that I like went through like a couple years back, and
Mm,
I think it like changes the tenor of my advice when I'm
yeah,
like, not you should do this, but being like, hey, I was like really fucked up about that, like in the way that you are now. And it's very
hmm.
relatable and it's humiliating. And I can show you evidence of my humiliation if you
Yeah.
want to see it. Um,
Yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly.
yeah. I'm curious if you also have advice that you would give
Ah,
to yourself.
I hope we get a memoir one day. I'll say that first. I'm just putting that out there, just planting some seeds. Planting some seeds.
Okay. Yes,
Uh-huh.
ma'am.
Uh-huh, yeah, exactly.
Yes,
We need your
mister.
psyche in the world. We need it. We need it documented. Oh, what would I say to my younger self? Oh, it's
What
always a
would you
question.
say to yourself from 4 years ago?
4 years ago, is it like when we're meeting?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, because that's always a question of like where are we tapping into? I can feel my chest rising. I don't know the pressure of the moments here.
For the
Um,
listeners at home, her eyes are closed and she's in her mind palace.
yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. Um, I guess I feel some level of emotionality because I've in the last like 4.5 years, like I am a small business owner. Like I run my own business, like doing all like my younger self who was in grad school could have never imagined like what I would have felt to be at this moment where like I get to like run my own life and like I get to tell you
Yeah.
that like I masturbate before my episodes and be like no one's gonna fucking fire me because I'm my own
Yeah.
boss.
Yeah.
If I
It's
could tell
fucking
myself
awesome.
that, like, you're gonna go, here's your pleasure, you're excited about this topic, and it's gonna take you to places you'll never imagine, and you'll get
Hmm.
to run your own empire with it. I mean, I would have said, no way. No way. I'm scared. I can't talk about the sex in my life. That's no, no. I'll get fired. I'll get slapped. I'll get whatever.
I
Um,
get whipped.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Dude, literally being in grad school kept this kinky edge for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're like trying to figure out how to like integrate it, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah, totally. I taught psychiatry residents in Indiana, and I could
cool.
feel how restricted they are. And I literally texted my partners afterwards. And I was like, God, they're so restricted. It makes me want to do some like impact and get in the dungeon and do something wild. Like I could feel how restricted. So I'm like, I must burst out. So it's interesting how when you
Yes.
you get so into so much freedom that it then shifts and changes all of that for you, right? Once you get there.
Yes. Yes,
Um,
definitely.
yeah. But I would just tell her to keep following her pleasure because she's on to something. And I think that's what I tell
Yeah.
myself now. And I love to like tell my clients like is follow that calling. I'm sure you, before you started any of this work too, had like a calling to these edges
Yeah.
and these places and your younger self like kept following those breadcrumbs to become like the empowered person that you are today. And so following that, trusting the journey of it
Yeah,
all.
definitely. I was having a conversation with a friend last night who is in the depths of a breakup of like a 6-year relationship.
Oh, rough.
And we were talking about it and we were having conversations. I was like, hey, do you love yourself?
Mm.
And and you know how you casually talk with friends.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
um and I think that it was like a really interesting question because I think that like it's like an interesting question to be like, do you love yourself? And love is like in media and also like in our bodies and in our spirits, like such an amorphous experience and is like continually like fluid and elusive.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
breaking it down and being like, oh, what does actually loving yourself mean? And for me, I'm like, that means respecting myself. It means building trust with myself continually, like crafting trust with myself
Yeah.
and like intentionally putting myself in experiences that like test my resilience on purpose
Yeah.
and giving myself like a body of evidence so that I can like understand that whatever it is that I'm encountering, even if it is like uncertain or scary or massive, like I have reason to trust myself. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think that that is something that is like just fucking awesome to like witness in like another person, you know? It's like
Mm.
really, really cool to like see you like tease out the beginnings of something and then also to see you like in the middle at the end in like so many different stages of like production and formation of
Mm.
both like this like literal thing which is like a business and a podcast and a project and also in like the way that you're thinking about the world and the way that you're
Mm.
formulating ideas. It's just like so fucking
Mm.
cool.
Mm. I appreciate
Yeah.
you seeing me in that. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
thanks for coming on the show. You're like for the first 10 people. I had nothing established. You know what I mean? Like, so thank you for starting with me. Like, seriously,
Yeah, it's
way
awesome.
back there, right? Like, you're one of the first
Totally.
10 episodes.
Yeah, it's it's like yeah, it's just like really awesome to be like, and now look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, what a joy. What a joy.
Yeah, truly.
Hmm. So, as we come towards the end of our time for today, and surely there will be an episode down the line one day when we check in again.
Yes. Yeah, in another 4 to 5 years. Awesome.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
I'll take another deep breath with you again. And I'll check in and see if there's anything else you want to say to the listeners. Otherwise, I have our last closing question.
I think I'm just eagerly anticipating your closing question.
Yes, 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 yes. May I not make you wait any longer? So, the last closing question is, what is one thing that you wish other people knew was more normal?
Mm. I think this is something that I think a lot of people know is normal, but I think I want people to feel that it is more normal. And that is the experience of being humiliated.
Mm,
Like, I want
hmm.
people to feel how normal it is to be
Oh,
humiliated.
yeah,
So we'd
yeah,
stop resisting it like all the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think that that's like really like the biggest thing that I can think of.
I love that for you. When was the last time you were humiliated?
I mean, I'm humiliated. I'm like micro dissing humiliation all the time because I think it is like a healthy thing for
Yeah.
me. Um, I think that it's also like a thing that I think keeps me really regulated because so many people, you know, being in like a dominant space, like people
Yeah.
are always like reverent to me. And
Sure.
I
Yeah, 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 yeah.
consistently try to like undo the dangers of what I call like domitis, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
where you forget that you're a human being and
Totally.
your mask is glued to your face. And I never
Yeah.
want to
Ouch.
do that.
Yeah.
And um but the last time that I can like actively like the one of the like last times that I can like actively think about like being humiliated and embarrassed. There were like a couple around like the summertime
Mm.
where one, for my birthday, my friends took me to an improv class because they were like, she needs to be humiliated. And I was like, yeah, I do. Thank you very much. This is so embarrassing. No shade to any improvers out there.
It's
I'm
tough
so
work,
sorry for
yeah.
the collateral that like the strays of the improv community is catching
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah, 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 yeah. I hear you, but I hear what you're saying.
But the second time was I was talking to a friend about this. I traveled to Asia this summer
Uh-huh.
and I like was traveling by myself in China and Hong Kong,
Mm-hmm.
and this really funny thing happened where I was traveling from Guangzhou to Hong Kong, which is like, but my travel was delayed by about a day because I was traveling during typhoon
Sure.
season. And
Okay.
just so you know, a typhoon hit Hong Kong
Yeah.
on the day that I was supposed to go.
Gosh.
And I landed and was I arrived in Hong Kong and I wanted to take like a cable car up the mountain to this
Mm-hmm.
place called Lantau Island,
Mm-hmm.
which is where like a very iconic Buddha, basically like a huge iconic Buddha statue
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
goes or
Yeah.
like lives. And I paid for this cable car and I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to spring for the crystal cable car, which is
Uh,
like the cable car that has like glass bottoms.
nice.
And I got into this cable car with a family that I did not know. And then I forgot that one of the biggest parts about going up in a cable car is that you are very, very high in the air. And I like humiliated myself in front of this family because I was gripping the walls and being like, oh fuck, oh fuck. Just terrified of heights in front of these strangers.
Amazing. I love
And
that.
like the wind was like blowing through. And I thought about the fact that I was like in a cable car up in the air, like maybe 1 to 2 days after like a major hurricane. And I was like, am I stupid? Am I dumb? What am I doing right now? And just like questioning all of my life decisions.
I love that.
But it was very necessary for me to
Mm,
like regulate my own sense of like fear and adrenaline and be like, okay, I'm doing something that I've never done
mm-hmm.
before and I'm engaging in things that I'm like building trust and tolerance with myself.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, amazing. I love that you're really pushing that. And it makes sense given everything that you do, that you love that edge for yourself as well. I'm curious, if you want to know what you said the first time that you answered that question.
yeah. What did I say?
You said feeling alone.
Yeah, I'm like thinking about how lonely I felt during that time
Hmm.
and also how held, but also like how lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing how we can really be in both at the same time, like feel deeply
Definitely.
isolated in a room full of people that love us at the same time when you
Yeah.
feel like you're really going through it. You're like, no one understands this pain. And truly no one does. Because only
Hmm.
you live that life. But sometimes it feels like the storm is just so ever present, even when people are literally holding your hand right there with you, like, hey, I'm here, I'm here. I'm like, no, you're not. You don't get it.
Yes.
You don't get it.
Yeah.
You're
You don't
like,
understand me.
Well, it was such a
Thank you
joy
for
to have
having
you on the
me.
yes, such a joy. So much fun, so much fun. I'm sure everyone is dying to know how they can connect with you. Where can they find all of your stuff?
Yes, definitely. I am on you can find me at empresswu.net. If you would like to apply for a session, you can go to empresswu.net/registration. You can also find me on Instagram as the bitch empress underscore or on Twitter as the bitch empress. You can also chat with me directly or call me on Sex Panther. That's sexpanther.com/empress-woo.
Amazing. And I'll have all of that linked in the show notes below, dear listeners, so you can go right there to connect. Thank
Yes.
you again for coming on the show. Such a joy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome to be here.
Dear listener, thank you so much for tuning in to Modern Anarchy. Thank you for sharing this episode with your friends, with your lovers, with your community. Truly, it means so much to me, and I am so grateful that you are here. If you are wanting to release jealousy in your non-monogamous dynamics and step into compersion and pleasure-filled connection, you can read my book, The Psychedelic Jealousy Guide, for free on my website. There you will also find so many other free resources, including worksheets on how to clearly communicate and set commitments and boundaries within your non-monogamous dynamics, and other ways to practice clear communication about your sexual desires so that you can step into your most pleasure-filled sex and relationships. So head on over to modernanarchypodcast.com to find all of those free resources, and I look forward to seeing you next week.